Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the UAB's head volleyball coach, Betsy Freeburg. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing good. Can you talk
Awesome.
about how you knew that you wanted to start college coaching?
That's a great question because when I was a player, I actually did not want to coach. I told my head coach in a practice that I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to do this. And so I graduated, I went into quote unquote the real world and was in commercial real estate for a year. And about halfway through that first year, I started to get an itch and miss playing volleyball and miss being around the sport. And so I started reaching out to some of the female coaches in my life that I looked up to and said, hey, what is it like to be a coach in that realm? And one of those people I reached out to happened to be my assistant coach, Sally Polhamus, a former head coach at Georgia State University. And she took the head coaching job at Georgia State University and was like, hey, come try this out with me. And that was in January of 2013. So here we are.
What was it like, obviously, going to Florida Gators to play in the SEC and play volleyball?
Yeah, I mean, it was truthfully a dream, and that's one of the things. It was always, I had no idea when I was growing up in small town Georgia, being a volleyball player wasn't really a popular thing at that time. It was a lot of basketball. And so once I decided that I really wanted to play volleyball at a high level, my grandfather went to University of Florida, and so I had some Gator roots, even being from Georgia, and so then it was kind of a dream school, both school and volleyball program, with them winning so many SEC championships, going to numerous Final Fours. I was kind of like, well, let's see if we can do this, and so then from there it was a hard journey, truthfully, because I had a lot of catching up to do. I had a lot of development that I personally needed to do athletically and personally to be able to make an impact on the court. And then fortunate enough to redshirt my first year, which did not seem like a fortune at the time, but it gave me so much more perspective that when I was there, what it really meant to be a Florida Gator. I remember very vividly after a workout in the swamp. So the weight room is actually in the swamp, football stadium itself. And I just remember as I'm trying to sprint from workout to class, washing my hands and looking in the mirror. And I was like, can you even begin to imagine how many people would rather be in your shoes right now? And kind of to have that perspective in that moment while I was still in it was really an awesome experience for me.
What were some of your biggest accomplishments during your time as a Florida Gator?
Yeah, so I was, like I said, again, fortunate to be on 5 seasons. And so 4 of those finished in Sweet 16s, 3 SEC championship and 1 Elite 8. I was the captain of the SEC championship team my senior year, which is a huge thing. And going from not playing at all really my first 3 seasons to finishing second team all SEC individually was a pretty big highlight for me my last year. But being the lead blocker on the team that went to the Elite 8 in 2011 was a pretty special one too.
How was that like, obviously, going to the Elite 8 and going to the Sweet 16s?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And it's one that truthfully I did totally take for granted as a student athlete. And because that was kind of the expectation was, hey, we're playing at Florida, we're competing and trying to strive for a national championship and a Final Four. And so it was kind of like, all right, well, on selection Sunday, it wasn't if our name's going to be called, it's who are we going to play? It was kind of our mentality. And now being on the flip side of that in the coaching world, I realized just how hard that is to do time and time again. And so, it was a lot of hard work, but also it was a lot of the culture, that the groundwork from years and years past that said, hey, this is how we do things. This is what it means to be a Gator, and have that expectation of winning, but also every other athletic program at the school is doing that too. And so just the being a champion amongst champions was something we talked about quite a bit, and how we carry ourselves and go throughout our daily business really had all those things in mind.
What was the feeling like of obviously getting to put on that Florida Gators jersey after obviously you said your family grew up a Florida Gator fan?
Yeah, I mean, just really a special thing. I totally remember chills running out of the tunnel to the fight song for our first attacking warm-ups my freshman year. And then, even getting pretty emotional the last time that we were doing it with the band playing and everything that it's pride really of what it means to wear that jersey, but also what it means to me with my family and having that degree and all those things is just really special.
Coming out of college, what was that like obviously getting into coaching in volleyball?
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things is I spoke a little bit about this. I had a great network of coaches that I had played for or gotten to know through recruiting or whatnot. And so I almost had to truthfully, fortunately for me, had to almost be talked into coaching, which is a totally different perspective from a lot of other people that really grind their way through it and work. I was given a lot of opportunities as a young coach, which is great. But looking back, one of my first players that I coached, she is now a head coach herself, which is a cool thing. But every time I see her, I apologize. I'm like, oh, you endured some rough stuff as I was learning how to be a coach and learning how to grow through this. And so it was interesting. My path is totally different. You talk to a lot of coaches that are like, I was a GA or I was a volunteer and I really kind of grinded my way through it. And someone for me just was pretty much like, please come do this and try it. And I was like, all right, let's do this.
What was that like obviously getting to work with the USA volleyball?
Yeah, so that was kind of one of the big things that I did at the beginning of my college coaching career was working with the USA High Performance Development Program, and it was one that I had participated in as a younger person, and I got to go to Italy and Croatia in high school with one of the development teams, and so it meant a lot for me to kind of both give back, but also a quick way to get connected with high level coaches across the US, really, as I was just getting into college coaching. And so it also gave me an opportunity to see a lot of high level youth players at an early start to my career.
What was that feeling like of obviously working with the developmental team and seeing them develop into making the national team and representing obviously US?
Yeah, one of my favorite things that I got to do was work one of the holiday camps. So that's where they take pretty much all the players. They're trying to figure out, okay, where do they fit with the national team and that sort of thing. But most of them are now juniors and seniors in college, and so it was really cool. This last year, I was on the AVCA All-American Committee. And seeing those names pop up and remembering them as little middle schoolers or earlier in their volleyball careers and seeing them becoming, or at least in the conversations for All-Americans, is a really awesome thing. And who knows, maybe we'll see some of them in the Olympics in the upcoming years.
What was that like going to Georgia State to obviously become the assistant coach?
Yeah, so Georgia State is an urban campus in downtown Atlanta, and I'm from Atlanta originally from Rome, Georgia, and then moved to Atlanta and went to high school in Atlanta. And so with that, I had a lot of connections. My parents are still in Atlanta. My sister is now in Atlanta. She was at University of Georgia as a normal student. And so being close to family as I was making this career change was a big deal for me. But also I loved being there at Georgia State because I was able to develop a really great friend group with either other young coaches or athletic trainers or whatnot within the athletic department that were all kind of in the same stage as me of trying to figure it out and figure life out, and made a lot of great connections and kind of that was where I had to cut my teeth learning how to do this coaching thing and recruiting. And Sally Polhamus is one of the best recruiters, and getting to learn from her and her organization and what that attention to detail looks like in the recruiting process is really what's kind of carried me, truthfully. Those foundations have carried me to this point.
What was that like, obviously leaving Georgia State to go to Freeburg?
Yeah. So in leaving Georgia State was really emotional because it was leaving my family, leaving my Sally, who was a great mentor and friend to me. But having the opportunity to go to Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama, was one that gave me a chance to see something totally different. It is almost the polar opposite of Georgia State, with being, a small Southern Baptist school in Birmingham, Alabama. It's still in a city, which was something that was pretty important to me because just of all the activity and things that happen within a city. But being the opportunity to work with Keeler Chan, who had 15 years experience in the Big Ten, with a different perspective of volleyball than what I had either played for and then worked for in that system with Sally, it gave me a great opportunity to try something very similar, because we're still coaching volleyball, but also a total different experience, especially with a team that was competing for Southern Conference championships annually. And what does that look like? And just a totally different culture than being at Georgia State.
How was that like, obviously going to Samford, and what were some of your accomplishments?
Yeah, so it was great. I felt like a lot of things really aligned for me when I was at Samford. I worked great with Keeler. Really, he and I very quickly had a great working relationship, and he mentored me in a lot of different ways with regards to how to, more from the business side of it. So kind of learning a little bit more how to be a head coach in that realm. He also gave me so much autonomy to say, hey, you do this, you're a recruiting coordinator, you do this and make decisions, and we can go from there. And so some of our biggest accomplishments were, in my 3 seasons there, we went to 2 NCAA tournaments, and we won winning 2 Southern Conference tournament championships. And we also, in one of those seasons, won the regular season Southern Conference championship, which the twofer hadn't really been done with Samford in at least a very long time. And so that was something we were really proud of. And also that last season that we won the regular season and won the championship and went to the NCAA tournament was the first year my husband and I worked together on the same staff. So that was really interesting.
What's that like, obviously getting to work close with your husband on the same staff?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's one that we are really thankful that we had that year, that Keeler was able to say, okay, we'll see how this goes, and kind of let us figure that out. But Ryan and I were really close friends from the volleyball perspective for many years before we even started dating. And so we had so many different volleyball conversations when we were just friends and just colleagues within this profession. And so with that, it was good for us to have the opportunity to try how do we work together. And what we found, one, that I've have quite a few coaching, essentially mentors that I have reached out to and started to learn how do they work with their spouse. What are things that work for them? Jen and Burnett Greeny at Washington State, Molly Albee at Cincinnati, and Mark Rosen at Michigan. All of those people have been doing this for a long time with their spouses, and it was something that I was like, okay, what are some of the things that are important? And fortunately for Ryan and me, we have very different roles and very different personalities, and so it makes it really clear for he does this and he does that really well, and I do this and I do this really well, and then we can work together with that. And on top of that, we have an awesome other assistant, Ashley Beach, who kind of puts us all together, and she's our glue for sure.
Of course, what was the feeling like when you got the job as head coach for the first time at UAB?
Yeah, so that was really interesting because I took the job, or my first day on the job was July 1, 2020. So right in the middle of crazy COVID. And it was really interesting because in about April, Ryan had talked about wanting to be a head coach before. I kind of been like, oh, I really like the recruiting thing and being an assistant and that sort of thing. But in about April of the spring, where we were all social distance and it was pretty much doing all work on your own time in your house. In about April, I said, I really think I maybe want to work for myself in the future, or I really think I could maybe be a head coach someday. It was really the first times I started thinking with that in mind. And be careful what you start thinking, because in June is when I got the call from UAB that said, hey, what are your thoughts on coming and taking over the program with the head coaching role? And I was like, oh my gosh, now it's an opportunity ahead of me. What does this look like? And especially in the middle of COVID, and we're all trying to figure this out. What does this mean? What does this look like? What does it look like long term? And one of the things that Ryan and I knew personally, just for professionally and our own family relationships, that we knew eventually one of us really wanted to be a head coach. And so we kind of said, okay, whichever one it is who gets that opportunity, we need to go after it. And we truthfully love Birmingham. We love the city, and we love being here. Our personal life was pretty solid, for lack of better words, fortunately during COVID. And that gave us the opportunity to take this position at UAB on a solid foundation. And so it's not like we had to pick up and move cross country and try and create new relationships. Like, all of those things were pretty much in place for us. Now, how do we start building this program?
Of course, what was that feeling like when you first stepped on campus and you became the head coach?
I would say maybe a little bit overwhelming. One of the first things that happened was one of our freshmen tested positive for COVID, and I was trying to figure out, okay, what does this mean? Who do I even call? What does this look like? How my first interaction with any of these players or their parents was trying to help lead them with things that I was figuring out on a daily basis. And then once I was able to kind of get my footing a little bit, it was really great. I had so much support from other coaches in the community that reached out and said, congratulations. If you need anything, let us know. And at that point, you don't know what you don't know. And then some people were like, I can't believe you took a head coaching job during the middle of COVID. And I was like, yeah, but it's everyone's first year being a head coach in COVID. So we're all figuring this out as we go. And so it was a really interesting time, but certainly exciting. There were times where I'd find myself truthfully at the end of practice being like, why is everybody looking at me? And it's like, oh, you're the one that's supposed to wrap this up and then be a head coach and do those things. It's just because I was transitioning from being in that assistant role.
What was that feeling like, obviously, from being a longtime assistant to now being the head coach and moving down one seat and everything falls on you?
It's one that I don't think you really can really be prepared for until you start doing it. You start looking around for who's going to have this hard conversation. You're like, no, it's me. Or who's going to make the hard decision? Oh, that's me. And so it was really important for me to be able to have a staff that was able to support me in that role and also have really sound decisions too. And so Ryan, I was fortunate enough to hire him as our associate head coach, and obviously I trust him unequivocally. And then being able to hire Ashley Beach, who had not had any Division I coaching experience, but she had a lot of experiences playing Division I volleyball, and she knew Ryan and me separately. So she was friends with Ryan really before Ryan and I started dating, and she and I grew up playing against each other in both high school and in college. And so she and I had known of each other at least for a long time and had always respected each other pretty highly. And so it was great to have her come in, and I lean on her quite a bit for like, okay, what do you think? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? And so I feel really supported by our staff in making those hard decisions.
Of course, coming off of the COVID years, what are some of your accomplishments so far?
Yeah, so truthfully, we've had the two best seasons here at UAB since 2013. which is something that is a huge testament to our players for them buying into some of the things we really wanted to change or move forward with. We also had the best road win in program history since rally scoring at number 47, I believe it was, UTEP. This last fall, we beat UTSA at home. Well, that was the first time we've ever beaten UTSA. It was at home in the spring of 2021, and then had the first win ever at UTSA in the fall of 2021. And so we've accomplished a lot. You know, the best RPI since 2013. We've had a back-to-back first team all conference USA player, Fernanda Maeda. And so those are some of the things. That's just the beginning. We've been to the conference tournament for the first time in back-to-back seasons since 2012 and 2013. And these are things that we're all proud of, but we also are striving to continue to grow on those things. Okay, let's beat that next year. And then what does this look like? And we had our first win ever over a Pac-12 opponent in Oregon State, which was a pretty exciting win for our team. And, you know, we're just going to keep pushing.
What is it like, obviously, as head coach going to the tournament versus obviously your time as a player going to the tournament?
Yeah, so it's totally different. And it is totally, you know, I've coached in the NCAA tournament with Stanford and played in it with Florida. And so they are totally different feelings, because as a player, you feel like you can control everything. You're like, oh, this is in my hands, or you feel confident, or you feel like you can really make a difference. And in coaching, it's all about the preparation leading up to that. And it's all about, okay, you know, you can prepare and you can hope and you can train as best you can. Then you get to the tournament, and then it's pretty much in the players' hands. We're going to help support them through it and help make some maybe adjustments mid-game, but for the most part, I'm not going to be able to go out there and hit the ball like I wanted to sometimes, but we've got to figure out how can we be. It's really, as a coach, it feels like that whole season leading up to that moment versus a player where you're like, okay, it's another game. Yes, it's important. And yes, I need to go out there and get it done.
What are some of the things that you've implemented in the culture and building it?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that was so hard when we first started was with the social distancing, with being in masks all the time, with making sure that we kept as safe as we could, especially with the unknowns of COVID, and keeping, trying to be able to compete. So people are only rooming with the people they already live with, or they're only able to eat with people they already eat with and live with. And so those things are really weird for trying to build a culture and trying to get to know people. So we focused a lot on, now that those are starting to loosen up quite a bit, we have had class dinners at our house that we host. So the juniors are all come over and we'll just hang out, and we don't really talk about volleyball. We talk about whatever we want to. So we do those at least once a semester with each of our classes, and then we'll do a big team meal that we'll host. We also have started implementing as a staff weekly 5-minute meetings. And so the team, we break it into 3 groups, and each week, each one of us as a staff meets with the players for 5 minutes. We have this little green hourglass that we just flip over, and it just runs, and you talk about whatever you want to, volleyball, life, school, whatever, anything. And from that, it's just really small check-ins and just how are we doing. And then we're also reading a book right now from Athlete Assessments called Athlete Tough. And so each week we're doing a chapter on that. There's about 15 chapters. And so it's worked out great this spring that each week we're going over a chapter of that. We're dividing in different small groups. So we're having to talk about different things with different people each week. And that includes us as a staff of being vulnerable and sharing things with them. And so we think that that's really helped with our connections off the court for sure.
Who are some of the teams that you face in your conference each week?
Yeah, so well, right now we're in Conference USA, and so those teams, and we've been playing in the West Division just due to COVID schedule. So the teams that we played a lot were Rice, UTSA, UTEP, North Texas, Louisiana Tech and Southern Miss. Those are the schools we played on these back-to-back seasons. The rest of Conference USA is Florida Atlantic, Florida International, Marshall. Well, I guess they're in the Sun Belt now. So is Southern Miss and Old Dominion. And then Western Kentucky, Charlotte, those schools are all ones that are also in CUSA. But we will be transitioning to the American Athletic Conference, which we're really excited about. Not sure when that is with all of the conference shakeups and realignment and whatnot, but that'll be an exciting transition for UAB and UAB volleyball.
What's that transition going to be like? Obviously, going from the Conference USA conference to the American Conference.
Absolutely. I think it's gonna be challenging for sure, because we're gonna have to be playing a little bit higher level, just conference wide, RPI wise. Right now, it's gonna be harder on a night to night basis, which means we've got to recruit kids that are going to come in and make a big difference with that. That's a big push for us right now, is with this recruiting. How are we going to work to transition through that league? But also it's going to be great for us because of it. It'll give us a little bit more national exposure since they have a TV deal with ESPN. Being able to watch us play streamed online, pretty much all of our matches, is going to be a huge thing for us.
Of course, for the program, what is that going to feel like, obviously, to be streamed on ESPN so everybody can see, versus I'm sure now not many people are able to see UAB?
Right. And I think that's an amazing thing, not only for UAB volleyball, but volleyball in general, is that it is the #1 sport that women and girls are playing in the youth ages. And so it is the most popular women's sport. To have it be out there and the opportunity for people to turn it on is pretty much any night of the week is going to be so exciting to be a part of. The more access to watching the games of the sport that girls want to be playing is really, really exciting to be a part of.
Of course, playing in your conference, what is it like, obviously, traveling to some of those teams like East Carolina conference and in those like areas?
Yeah, and so this because of the COVID schedule so far, we have pretty much done a lot of Texas travel, and our most challenging travel so far has been to UTEP, because there are no direct flights to UTEP and it is far away. And so you're in the mountain time zone over there. And on our return trip home, we were on essentially one of the last flights, because we played that day. And then our flight got delayed for engine start things and missed the last flight out of Dallas to Birmingham. So we had to figure out that night where to put 23 players in hotel rooms, and how are we going to get then the next day, those 23 players on flights to get back to Birmingham, which took 3 different groups. And luckily we had enough adults with us that it all worked out. But that was certainly the most exciting. But traditional travel will look like, if it's within 5 hours or so, we'll take a bus. Besides that, we'll get picked up by the Blazer Express outside Bartow Arena, go 10 minutes to the Birmingham airport, and fly on out.
What does a typical home day look like for you?
Yeah, so home day looks actually we try and keep it looking really similar to an away game. And so we don't have a lot going on until pregame meal, which is about 3.5, 4 hours prior to match time. So we'll have a pregame meal then. 2 hours before the match, we'll have a 30-minute serve and pass just to get us going, get our minds in the right place. And then we'll start warm-ups about 48 minutes before the match starts, and then we'll play. And that's really similar to what it's like on the road for us as well.
Of course, what does the recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to play college volleyball?
Yeah, so recruiting really for volleyball starts pretty early. With the NCAA rules that have adjusted that a little bit now, since we cannot talk to any prospective student athletes until June 15, following their sophomore year of high school, so going into their junior year. But I would say that we get lots of emails every single day. We make sure you have a university athlete profile that is available. And then we mark those kids that email us. Ashley does an awesome job of watching every single video that comes across our desk to say, hey, do we think this player could be a good fit for us? Then we go and we watch a lot of club tournaments. That's what we're doing this spring. I think I was saying that this Saturday, even though we have 2 official visits, we're really excited about this weekend. But this Saturday will be my first Saturday evening off since February 8th, I think is that date. And so we're out there, we're working, we're watching a lot of volleyball. And so really, if you are interested in a program, reach out and see if they have camps or see if you can get involved in front of those coaches, especially if it's before June 15th of your sophomore year.
What are some of the things that you look at as a head coach in these prospective student athletes when going to tournaments and going to the high schools to look at them?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's changed a little bit from where I was as an assistant coach. But one of the recruiting philosophies that Keeler Chan and I really came up with was, one, are they a culture fit? And so are they someone that you feel like is someone you want to bring into the program? We spend so much time with these student athletes once they're here. We want people we enjoy being around and we like being around. And so you can tell that a little bit through watching them and how they interact with their coaches and teammates while they play, but also getting to know them on the phone when we can do that. So 1, culture fit, and 2, they have to be better than. And so what we mean by better than is either better than that position in our gym right now, better than what's going on in our conference, the teams we're trying to beat. And keeping those 2 things in mind at all times helps me to say, okay, is this someone I want to be around? Are they making us better? Those things move our program forward. So that's what I'm looking for in recruiting.
Of course, when these recruits come on the official visit, what does that process look like at UAB?
Yeah, so it's really one that we've spent a lot of time identifying these student athletes. We've spent a lot of time talking with them on the phone, talking with their club coaches or their club recruiting coordinators or their high school coaches, or depending on who it is and what connections we know. And through that, we pretty much are at a very serious point in the recruiting process when we would extend that official visit offer. It's one that, because they do cost a lot of money and the budgets are not, we don't have an unlimited budget. So we make sure that as best we can, we know we want these players to be a part of our program when we invite them on an official visit. And then through that, we hope to show them why we believe this is a great fit for them. So they'll meet with our SWA, they'll meet with our academic advisor, they'll meet with our strength and conditioning coach. They'll hopefully be able to watch our practice or some sort of competition and see us play. We will have them tour campus, tour Protective Stadium, which is our brand new football stadium, tour our brand new practice facility that we're going to get to see for the first time on Friday, which we're excited about. And so to really show what's going on and why it's an exciting time to be a part of UAB athletics and the volleyball program.
Of course, as a head coach, what is it like obviously seeing those recruits come on campus and fall in love with the school and get to try on the jersey and fall in love with the colors?
Yeah, and those are things that you're like, okay, this is a pretty cool deal. This could be a part of what the future of the program looks like. We are so invested in our current student athletes, and as you could tell with the 5-minute meetings and trying to make sure that we're caring for our own team and their development. But when you start to see the future literally right in front of your eyes, it gets really exciting as well.
Of course, what advice would you give those high school athletes looking to become college volleyball players?
Yeah, I'd just say work. And if it's part of your dreams, you've got to figure out a way to make those dreams a reality. And so you've got to continue to get better. You've got to reach out to those schools or people that you know and trust that can maybe help you navigate what level or what division could be a good fit for you, and work at it.
What advice would you give those college volleyball players looking to go on to the professional level, whether it's Athletes Unlimited or US volleyball or even internationally?
Yeah, that's a great question because it is something that, at least in our offices, our student athletes are starting to talk with us quite a bit of, hey, I don't want volleyball to end. My advice would be, one, do not get an agent or anything like that until your NCAA eligibility is over, because otherwise you will put your eligibility at risk, and that is not worth it at this time. And so after that, I would say to start talking with your college coaches. Hey, I think I want to play professionally. What does this look like? What do you have any former student athletes that have gone on to play professionally? With that, because that is most of the professional opportunities in volleyball right now are in Europe or overseas. And that's a totally different world than playing in college in the US and getting academics in a really structured setting. When you're in Istanbul, Turkey, and all you're doing is playing volleyball and working out, it's a totally different mindset when you don't know the language or you don't feel comfortable with it. And so I encourage them to talk to student athletes that they know that have done it and that have lived it, so they can get a full picture of what that life and what that reality looks like.
What advice would you give future college volleyball players looking to transition from playing to getting into college coaching like you did?
Yeah, and I would say make sure that you're doing it because you love the game and you love developing both people and players. I think a lot of former volleyball players really do it because they're like, oh, well, I don't know what else to do, so I'm just going to do volleyball things. I would encourage them, make sure you're doing it because you love teaching. It's really, coaching equals teaching. I'm sure, I don't know if you can see that apple behind my desk, but that's something that reminds me daily that you are a school teacher of volleyball. And so that you've got to be reminded of that. And also I would encourage you to make sure you try and keep your experiences separate from what your student athletes are doing now, because when you start comparing yourself or your story to what they're going through, there's a lot of disconnect, and it's just really not fair, truthfully, because each person has their own individual story. So I'd encourage you to say, hey, all right, that was an old chapter, this is a new one, and really have a full mindset shift when you transition from playing to coaching.
What advice would you give those future head coaches looking to get started like you did?
Develop a great support system of other friends and mentors, so that you can call and say, hey, I don't know how to handle this. How would you, or have you had any experience with this? Because those things come up almost on a daily basis where you're like, well, I didn't know I was going to have to manage this today. And I would also tell them to be prepared to make a lot of really hard decisions often. And so it's not like, ooh, that hard decision's done. There's always the next one, and it's coming up pretty quickly. And so I would just tell them to be comfortable with making the hard decisions, and learn how to sleep at night with those too.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the UAB volleyball program at?
Yeah, so actually let me figure out what exactly my Twitter, and so I'm on Twitter and Instagram. My Twitter is at Betsy Freeburg. So just my name, BETSY FREEBURG. And my Instagram is, I don't even know how to get to that, to be honest. There we go. It is EAF1126. And that one's really, if you like a lot of cooking things, they'll probably be on my story. So
thank you again, Coach Betsy Freeburg, for your interview, and best of luck in your future at UAB.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope that this has been a little entertaining, or at least insightful for some.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Betsy Freeburg, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you.